Very good morning to you. Welcome along to Tuesday morning's OTB AM. We are all over the world this morning. We're gone down under to talk to the young Meathman who turned down a contract to play for Leinster Rugby to make it in the AFL, who made his debut this week. We're also going to hear from Ciara Mageean, who was astonishingly good in finishing fourth in Berlin during the week. We have some footballing sisters from Wicklow and loads more besides. Eoin, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ger.
This is one of those mornings where we're kind of looking forward and looking back. It's like not that much is actually happening in the world of sport today, but it's going to be an amazing show anyway, right?
That is plenty happening. There's plenty of a lull from looking across the papers this morning of the boredom of Dublin, and apparently there's plenty of excitement that we're just tangibly waiting for coming this Sunday rather in the hurling final. So there is this kind of Tuesday lull as you get in every week, but you know there's the ups and downs as usual.
Jack McCaffrey is on all of the newspapers, and we're going to play an interview he did with Mark Rossany-Kelly a little bit later on in the show. It did strike me that the quality of his performance at the weekend was somebody who is in the very top echelons. Obviously, he's already been Footballer of the Year at a very young age, right? Is there a possibility that Jack McCaffrey goes on to become one of the greatest, if not the greatest footballer of his generation / all time? Like, who are we talking about when we're talking about the greatest footballers of all time? Let's go post Kerry greatest era, so that's taking Mick O'Connell out because none of us saw him play. So from that point on, from Jack O'Shea, the greatest player on that Kerry team?
Jack O'Shea, Spillane, or Paddy, like those three, and then you throw in Mikey Sheahan as well, and Johnny.
You got to pick one. Pick one.
It's got to be Jack O'Shea, doesn't it? I'm not in a real place to kind of say that. I didn't see that team in the flesh and stuff, but the way legend goes, it's like Mick O'Connell, Jack O'Shea, Maurice Fitz, Gooch were kind of the great players from each of those teams. So Jack O'Shea, I guess, is the common theory.
And is Jack O'Shea better than Maurice Fitz?
Well, you see, this is the thing. This is where recency bias comes into it. I do remember the magic of Maurice Fitz. I do remember 2001. To 97 to a certain extent is a lot vaguer. And then Gooch is complete recency bias when I think he is the greatest of all time because...
You think Gooch is better than Maurice Fitz?
Well, I was there to witness the entire thing. I didn't feel what people felt in 97 when Maurice Fitz saves Kerry.
We had Gooch in studio recently enough, and you were picking away at the open scab of him not being Footballer of the Year in the company of James Dunne, who was Footballer of the Year, and we were talking about Footballer of the Year. I hadn't realised until you brought it up
that he hadn't won a Footballer of the Year.
Yeah,
it's the only missing thing from his locker. Probably would have won it in 2011, but let's not talk about 2011. Let's talk about Jack McCaffrey, as you mentioned there. No need to bring up bad memories. Definitely, I think there is. I was actually having this conversation after the game on Saturday that he probably is the player of this Dublin generation. When you think about the performances he's put in, when you think about the consistency of that performance, that when you talk about raw talent, of course, people will remember Diarmuid Connolly for that, and Diarmuid Connolly will probably play again for Dublin, and he may well kind of back that up with performances that would justify that talent. But when it comes to the talent, when it comes to consistent performances, I think Jack McCaffrey has been the standout player of this Dublin team from 2013 onwards, and particularly over the last few years, player of the year, as you say, at a very young age. And then Saturday, it just kind of reminded us how great he is, rather than reminding us kind of rather than being just a cog in this unbelievable machine. He is kind of that spark of genius that is really undeniable at the moment.
Yeah, so if he stays at it, what does he have to do to become the greatest footballer? Is it possible that you can become the greatest footballer of all time now? Is that something that's, like, given how life works and how it's unfair to compare different generations?
Well, naturally.
Another Footballer of the Year, and then it's like, two-time Footballer of the Year. That doesn't happen very much.
It would be absurd to think that Dublin can't produce a greatest footballer of all time as somebody that will be in that conversation, especially if they go on to win this year's All-Ireland and next year's All-Ireland. Especially if we're sitting here next year and they've done 5 in a row.
Imagine the competition within that team to be the Footballer of the Year the year that you win 5 in a row.
Well, that is the thing. That is the thing. And like, it could be a whole wide range of people. Like, this could be the start of like the dominance becoming even more dominant, that we could have Brian Howard becoming the best player of all time. You just don't know how he's going to progress because he has started so bloody well. And if we look at any player of that age, they tend to get better and better and better, just like Jack McCaffrey to a certain extent has. Now, the thing is, McCaffrey comes in at the start and he's unbelievably quick, which kind of gives him that edge over a lot of bigger players. And that was his debut season when he scores that amazing goal against Cork in an All-Ireland quarter-final, that he had just a special talent right from the off that quite a lot of these Dublin players seem to have, actually, which is testament to a lot of things.
Don't worry, Eoin, it's all cyclical. They'll get caught eventually.
Yes.
No, they won't. It's definitely not cyclical.
There's going to be 12 people at next year or in an All-Ireland semi-final in 10 years.
We're going to talk with Gareth Davies a little bit later on about the Conor McGregor Khabib fight. That's around about 8:25. Conor Nash is going to join us live on the line from Australia after making his debut for Hawthorn at the weekend. Ciara Mageean is going to talk to us about finishing fourth, so close to a medal in Berlin at the weekend. And we're going to bring you that Jack McCaffrey interview in a couple of minutes' time. Is Jack McCaffrey on his way to becoming the greatest footballer of all time? It's possible that his career, he's a junior doctor, is going to stop him from being able to dedicate the time that he needs to become just because we flog our junior doctors so horribly, that it could be a very difficult first couple of years of his professional life that might prevent him from going on to become the greatest footballer of all time. But you can't see much else standing in the way of it, can you?
Not really, no. It's a good point, actually, that you wouldn't really think of it, that we kind of see these people as footballers and footballers only, and you look after the 9 to 5, whereas, as you say, this isn't the 9 to 5, and even if it was, you do get flogged. Like, even just chatting to Phil Healy on the show a couple of weeks ago, like, she just mentions the basic element of being on your feet all day in a ward when she was in her previous life as a nurse at the time was very, very taxing, albeit as a sprinter might have a little bit more of an impact on you, who knows. But Jack McCaffrey's a bit of a sprinter for the Dublin team. Like, you look at someone on the other Dublin team in Noel Healy, who's very, very accomplished medical professional as well, and that doesn't seem to have held her back. So I think actually the two of them were at a media event earlier in the year, and it was actually McCaffrey and Healy. So I think he was kind of saying, he kind of cited her and said, well, you know, I've been chatting to her and she's actually kind of done X, Y or Z. And as I say, like, they've gone to a different level, the Dublin women's footballers. So hopefully it doesn't hold them back from our own perspective. But I don't think the health service give a damn about what Jack McCaffrey has to do in the evening.
They really don't. Time for the papers.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Starting with the Examiner this morning, and it's a great picture of John Myler at the Cliffs of Moher. On the edge, John Myler fears the growing demands on elite GAA players. He's dressed, he's the archetypal mammal, a middle-aged man in lycra, but he can actually wear it quite well because he was in the office yesterday. He is fit as a whippet. So the Wild Atlantic Way Cycle Sportif was being launched yesterday. That interview's going out on Friday?
Friday, yep.
And he's in good form?
Very good form, yeah. He's very good chat, obviously previewing the weekend and kind of reminisces on his childhood in Wexford and brings up my all-time favourite hurling team, even though none of us ever saw them, was that double winning team of 56 and 57 in Wexford. And he mentions the likes of Art Foley and Ned Wheeler, who of course used to be on
the show.
He I don't want to give away too much, but he tells like a great story of Ned Wheeler. He used to drive a milk van, stopping off at Myler's house and pucking a ball around with him in the front garden and then going off about his business again for the rest of the day. It's a brilliant story.
No need for Hunger Games in the Gavin Guide to Ongoing Success. This is the always entertaining Mike Quirk today. Yeah,
he's comparing Jim Gavin to Brooks Koepka, that we're not going to get the Tiger Woods level of enthusiasm around Jim Gavin, but it is...
Has a big chip on his shoulder because he doesn't get the coverage and credit he deserves?
Well, in fairness to Mike Quirk, he doesn't mention any chips on shoulders, and I don't think he does have a chip on his shoulder. What he does mention is just the complete absence of ego that is kind of frustrating almost from a media perspective or from a neutral perspective when it comes to watching him speak. But that is ultimately why they're so incredibly successful. There's a couple of other good lines in the piece as well, which kind of escape my mind right now. Okay, well, I'll give you two there. But so if Brooks Koepka is, in this analogy, Jim Gavin, does that make Kerry Tiger Woods? Well, Woods great.
Implicitly, clearly a shadow of their former selves, celebrating mediocrity.
On the way back. Do fans appreciate Koepka's game? Of course they do. Do they love him like Tiger? No chance. Which is a fair point. That doesn't mean that you can't appreciate how good Koepka is. And also, as I said yesterday, I kind of took an instant liking to Brooks Koepka, but I think most people, it's been a slow burn with him, that this kind of deep resentment kind of turns to appreciation. And like he also talks interestingly here about the hunger theory, that, like, if you talk about the Dublin team of 15 years ago, it was like, well, they haven't won an All-Ireland since 95. They're hungry. They're going to have more hunger than anybody else. That's why Sam Maguire changed hands, because...
Hunger as bullshit as momentum.
Well, that's it. And that's what Mike Quirk is saying here. Momentum is not a bullshit thing. But anyway, Jim Gavin, he says, is doing something very deliberate with Dublin that has eradicated the notion of winning, makes you less driven for the future, which is very true. That the idea was that Dublin were hungry because they hadn't won an All-Ireland since 1995. Jim Gavin has turned that on its head. They are hungry because they've won the last 3 All-Irelands, and that they are striving for gold, and that they are striving to be the best. That they seemingly invest huge time and energy into trying to create more of a player-led environment as well, which kind of feeds into this idea why they can figure out games so well. But it's in the melting pot, the likes of those Mayo games over the last couple of years, where that is also part of the absence of ego, where the management don't need to feel like they're controlling every little part of it. The players have as much of a say in the conversations that are important around the team. So it's a good piece again by Mike Quirk.
The biggest threat to Dublin is that their management team breaks up, and that somebody comes in and goes, no, it's my way or the highway, and we're going to go back to doing what it is that made Dublin great in the first place. None of this fannying about ticky-tacky nonsense. And that is the really only threat that you can see to their dominance. And there's no way at this point in the cycle that Jim Gavin is going to leave. And if he does, you would expect that Dublin is so well run at the moment that they would appoint from within that current management setup. Or so Dessie Farrell was obviously involved with the under 21s as they were, like somebody who knows the group and will come in and go, well, this all seems to be working quite well. Maybe we're not going to make too many changes to it.
Well, that's the thing, and I can't believe we're talking about successors to Jim Gavin, but if that were to occur, Dessie Farrell is your man, because he seems
or
like
Jason Sherlock,
or Jason Sherlock. Perfect shot, actually. It's just a matter of Jim Gavin could win 5 in a row, step away, and Dublin would then win 7 in a row just from the groundwork that Jim Gavin has laid down. If Sherlock is there or Dessie Farrell is there, it's just a matter of saying, well, green light, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. And like we're talking about 7 in a row, we're talking about Jim Gavin stepping away, we're getting into wild rounds of speculation here, but maybe it's all going to happen.
So McInerney's final green light. The Independent this morning reporting that Gareth McInerney is fit and ready to go for the All-Ireland hurling final this coming weekend. They also have Ireland's James Scully starting the final of the men's 200 metre freestyle in the day 1 of the World Para Swimming Championships, which are taking place in Dublin. Sorry, the World Para Swimming European Championships. So the European Championships are here. Johan van Graan was doing press yesterday. Loads of interesting stuff coming out of that. In particular, the notion that most of the Ireland players won't be available for long stretches of this season. So it's a World Cup year.
Yeah.
We're wrapping everybody up in cotton wool, and then they'll be horribly undercooked by the time the World Cup rolls around.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing all the comments about this from all the camps that aren't Leinster over the next couple of weeks. They'll all be saying to themselves, it's fine, Ireland comes first, because well aware of the fact that Leinster are going to be the ones that are going to get killed
3
by
lads
this.
after training.
Exactly. So Van Graan doesn't seem too disappointed about that. He knows what the story is. He knows what the structure is. Even if it was all things being equal, each province having the exact same amount of players in the Ireland camp, I think the way Ireland are going at the moment, you just kind of have to put your hands up and say, right, for this one season, go ahead. Just do it. Give it a lash. If you're not going to make a World Cup semi-final at this stage, you are never going to do it. This is the greatest team we've ever had. This is the greatest structure potentially we've ever had at an elite level. And there is the greatest support from the public. Just go and do it. And then never talk to me again if you don't reach that World Cup semi-final. Great
story from Brian Keogh in the back of the Irish Independent. Who do you think is Ireland's third highest paid golfer this year?
The caddy for Brooks Koepka.
Hey, you've already read the story. Okay, so Ricky Elliott is his name. He could be online to make about £1 million this year, which might make him actually the second highest Irish earning golfer of the year. McIlroy has 3.6 million already. Shane Lowry's on 700 grand. Needs to do really well in the last tournament that he can possibly keep his card. But he's already picked up 10% of the 2 million for the USPGA and 2 million for the US Open. So that's 400 grand right there. And then another percentage of the 6.4 million that Koepka's won outside of that 4 million. So he's already made 10 million this year, Koepka. There's another wheelbarrow load of money to be made in the FedEx playoffs to come. And the form Brooks Koepka's in at the minute, you wouldn't back against him winning the 10 million quid, which would be £1 million in a day for him. So yeah, not bad.
It is incredible.
Suddenly people are like, yeah, I wouldn't mind being a caddy.
Wasn't Williams, the highest paid New Zealand sports person at one stage.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Williams, the Cardiff Tiger Woods, that story definitely did the rounds, and then a bunch of people debunked it. So,
Well,
yeah, it's 100% true.
Richie McCaw, while sweeping the shed, was like, "I'm not having that."
Yeah, breaking the brush over his knee. Greek tragedy, Celtic's Champions League odyssey to end in Athens. The Racing Post this morning are saying that AEK Athens are going to knock Celtic out of the Champions League qualifiers tonight. Woods 12-1 for the Masters after major near miss. Is 12-1 now about Tiger for next year's Masters good or horribly bad and a waste of money?
Horribly bad and a waste of money, I would say. No,
I mean,
12-1 isn't extraordinary odds this far out from a
going to be
tournament.
fit? I don't know if he's going to be fit.
That's the thing. Like, worst case scenario, he goes into 9-1. Like, I'd rather take 9-1 the week of the Masters than 12-1 now.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Handicapper Awesome Alpha is out on her own. Handicapper Awesome Alpha is out on her own. So Alpha Centauri is officially the best 3-year-old Irish filly since Ridgewood Pearl 23 years ago. So you're witnessing history every time Alpha Centauri runs, and we're not quite sure what her next move is going to be according to the papers this morning. And a quick look at the Irish news before we get to the tabloids for you. A decade of frustration drove us to a final spot, says Hart, and Rogers saddened by Boyata's situation. We've also got the Mayo news for you this morning. The big news in GAA is that Rochford confirms his return. So that's the story on the Mayo News. They're breaking that this morning. It's carried as well in the Irish Indo and a couple of other newspapers too. So Stephen Rochford is coming back. Not that much of a surprise. It would have been very interesting to see if Jim McGuinness had been given a run at this Mayo team to see what would have happened. It's not going to happen. I don't think anybody can begrudge Stephen Rochford another spin of the dice.
The talk yesterday was about 2020 though, wasn't it?
For
Jim McGuinness.
I mean, come on. He's going to have another job by then.
He's going to have another job by then, probably. But
this is 2018.
Yeah.
Oh, he'll take you in 2 years' time, Jim.
Well, it'll be this time next year he'd get ratified.
For the
2020 season, Jim. But, like, talking about that a year out is, as you say, there's a lot of variables.
Next year after they win the All-Ireland and 5 in a row.
That's the thing. What do you do, actually, if you're Stephen Rochford? Do you step down after the greatest achievement?
You win an All-Ireland?
Yeah, you win an All-Ireland.
You keep going for 10 years. Job for life, lads.
You are an automatic legend. And I guess there is kind of a possibility that if they
maybe you do step down.
I don't know.
There's always this sense that you step down, you shouldn't have, because actually, like, Liam Sheedy stepped down, and okay, so he's got a very busy life, and that's fair enough, and they had won the All-Ireland, they'd stopped to 5 in a row. But, like, that tip team chronically underperformed afterwards.
Did Jim McGuinness's legacy get damaged by staying on with Donegal? No, is what I would say. So you have that banked.
They should have won another All-Ireland.
Yeah, but that doesn't. I don't think anybody says like Jim McGuinness became a bad manager or that 2012 Ireland was lucky.
It was totally worth it for him staying on, because then, like, I mean, if the goalkeeper doesn't kick the ball to Donaghy, they're probably going to beat Kerry that day.
Yeah, there's a lot of other variables. A lot of other stuff happened in that game as well, Ger. Let's move on to the Irish.
Actually, nothing else happened in that game. It was like nothing else happened.
Yeah, it was 1-0. I forgot. Back page of the Irish Daily Mail this morning is Johnny B. Good. Collins reckons Glynn is key to Galway hope. So that's the former Galway captain David Collins talking about Johnny Glynn. It seems that he wants him to just stand in on the edge of the square and play full forward. The high ball into Johnny Glynn is going to be utilised in some way, you'd imagine, on Sunday, whether or not that's going to be from the puck out or whether or not it's going to be an offensive tactic.
Johnny Glynn is all of the newspapers too, because David Collins is saying he's going to have to make a decision about his commuting from New York. He's still flying back and forth. He works in construction in New York, and apparently has a really good job, and is also one of the best hurlers in Galway at the moment, and is leading this dual life, which can't be easy.
It's an incredible situation, isn't it? It's so unique. I presume he's like
flying business class.
Well, I would like to think. I'm sure
full stretch.
I'm
sure.
Or
is it like cramped?
Like the SNC coach in Galway would have a fit if this guy was cramped into like a Norwegian Airlines flight every single week. But I presume he's like on an extended leave from his construction job at the moment.
No, I don't think so.
No?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's back and forth. So certainly that was the implication was that Collins was on the phone to him and he was in the airport heading back after a recent game.
Right, okay. That's mad. Like that's... It's huge kind of commitment from Galway to actually give Johnny Glynn this kind of seal of approval. But then when you're as good as Johnny Glynn and when you can dictate an entire plan as Johnny Glynn can do, then I guess he does kind of gravitate that way, and he has that amount of importance. The other story, by the way, on the back of the Irish Daily Mail this morning that we want to bring you is this Mo Salah story. Liverpool reports Salah to police. So just have a look at this video.
take a picture.
I got a bit.
Leave him alone, I'll get pissed.
The car is not stopped. Is the car stopped?
It is stopped, but it is in traffic. I think we'll see it move along now in a moment.
Oh yeah.
He is horrible. Horrible man.
Oh, the commentary's class.
What?
Wait for it.
Get this boot. Come on, Mo. There's a boot behind me. Come on, Mo.
Mo?
Too much money.
Too much money. What? That is the line.
I mean, he's in traffic.
Mo?
I sure hope it's not the same guy who had that run-in with Jamie Carragher on the motorway. But basically, as you can see there, Mo Salah is using his phone while driving a car, and Liverpool have reported him to the Merseyside police. We've spoken to the player, that says the police, and will deal with any follow-up internally. So neither the club nor player will be making any further comment on this matter. The police then say that was Liverpool who been made aware of a video believed to show a footballer using a mobile phone while driving. This has been passed to the relevant department. So Liverpool screwing their own man over there. He probably would have got reported by somebody anyway.
What do you think of this?
Liverpool have been forced to act. They've kind of got it. They have to be seen to do something at this point.
Well,
right?
they didn't have to report it to the police. They could have said, "Oh, we've asked Mo to stop doing this." But actually, reporting to the police is quite a serious. Like, it means you have to assume it means points on his license, right?
For sure.
And didn't Salah have like some tweets when he arrived? It was like, "Oh, need to remember to drive on the right side of the road." So maybe what they're actually doing is just protecting their asset here. It's like, if you are on your phone while driving and it's slow, maybe you might also be on your phone while driving when it's fast, and who knows where that leads to. You know, bad things happen to people who drive with mobile phones.
Yes.
And you're very important to us, Mo. So we're actually protecting you from yourself.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm reading too much into this. It might be just a simple matter of player welfare.
I think they're doing the right thing. You know, it's like, I think this is a sign of a club who are at it. You know, like Arsenal in the good old days when David Dean was there in the marble halls of Highbury. Like, they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were about. It was well run. It's like, no, you can't step out of line like that.
So when we look back on Liverpool winning the Premier League season,
that's the moment right there.
That was the moment.
Too much money, Mo.
Too much money. I love that commentary there. It's fantastic. It's like, well, like would you sign the autograph of your Mo? I mean, is it more dangerous to sign an autograph with a moving card than using your phone?
He's right not to sign the autograph for that guy.
Back page of the Irish Daily Star this morning is PSG in €110 million Eric raid. So Spurs are facing a fight to keep Dane as French giants plan swoop. So, of course, the transfer window hasn't closed for European teams. Eriksen could be on the way out if Spurs accept that offer. Imagine if Spurs do accept that offer. If Daniel Levy, just behind Pochettino's back, is like, yes, please.
Yeah.
Imagine what Pochettino would
Christian,
react like.
We're going for a little weekend in Paris. Oh, it's very romantic.
Oh my God, it would be hilarious. It would just be, it would be the worst transfer window by any competitive team in the Premier League ever.
The news also broke yesterday that they're not going to get into White Hart Lane as early as they expected. So back to Wembley for a bunch of home games, and it's like it's not quite the season that he had planned or I'm sure envisaged in his head. No,
Eriksen of course has failed to sign that new contract. This is where things start to get tricky for Spurs. They didn't look good on Saturday either. I'm not sure if you watched that.
I watched a bit of it, yeah. The first half was really good, and then the second half, I might have fallen asleep.
Well, Newcastle should have equalised, is the bottom line here. And immediately there are signs that Spurs may not be able to mount a title challenge once again this year. And if that doesn't happen, then what happens?
I think that winning at Newcastle is going to be a good 3 points. I don't think everybody's going to win at St James' Park.
It probably is. No, in fairness, it probably is. But in terms of some leakages at the back, let's just say there was a few moments that made me think, this isn't going to be Spurs' year once again. A couple of other stories for you, particularly when it comes to football. Utter rubbish, says the back of the Mirror. Former England boss Big Sam slams Emery for Gunners' tactics after opening day defeat to Pep's champions. So this is interesting stuff from Big Sam. He says it's the manager's fault for their defeat to Manchester City. Don't ask someone to do against Manchester City what you can't do. So this is in relation to playing the ball out of the back. What do City do? They press. So why do you try to play out? Even the Arsenal crowd cheered when they dropped one in the opposition's half. Bitter attack there on Wenger's successor, Unai Emery. It's probably a little bit too soon to be saying that they're utter rubbish, but he has got blasted, and that's the nature of Big Sam and kind of wielding his words in the media at the moment.
Utter rubbish and blasted.
Back page of the Herald this morning is Jack's Sky High Blues. McCaffrey lauds new dubs, pushing for places. Griffith says we can cope with the pressure as well for that AK Athens against Celtic match. And then the Sun goes with that Celtic story as well. I feel sorry for Boyata's teammates. And Pogba Barca poser, move talk not silenced. So this is the story that rumbles on and on and on. Barcelona have still refused to rule out a move for Manchester United's Paul Pogba. A couple of articles doing the rounds as well this morning wondering if Paul Pogba will get the permanent captaincy at Manchester United, which will kind of be a full seal of approval from Jose Mourinho. But that's not necessarily what Paul Pogba wants. Like, does he...
Maybe he does.
Maybe he does.
Maybe that's all he wants. Just a bit. Everybody wants to be loved a bit. That's all.
And the armband. Nothing better than being loved a bit by giving you the armband. One other story that caught my eye inside in the Sun this morning is one about Bernardo Silva. Like, the reporter here, Martin Blackburn, has clearly spoken to a few of Bernardo Silva's former teammates, and they haven't exactly been kind of glowing in praise. Well, they have been, but they've kind of said some very strange things. Like Guillermo Matos says Bernardo paid to play for Benfica when he joined through the schools. Just like, this guy paid his way up through the ranks. When he still struggled to break into the youth team, his friends started a campaign to get him picked by the manager. Another former teammate then said they even brought a placard to training saying, "Play Bernardo." By the following year, Bernardo was the number 10 with the same coach. The placard helped, so he can be grateful to his friends for that. There's a couple of old Portuguese friends trying to hop on the Bernardo Silva bandwagon. Like, there's a couple of lines here as well, saying from João Moutinho, actually, who's of course now at Wolves, said, "I can see Bernardo approaching the level of Messi, Eusebio, Maradona, and Pelé."
All right.
24 years old. Is it too late to make that sort of burst?
No, not really.
So
modern medicine these days makes people develop in different ways.
Yeah, so I've heard. It's good stuff. Front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section. Tiger set loose on Europe. The 14-time major winner's miraculous return to form to be rewarded with a place on the US team. And then finally, the back page of The Guardian is Stokes out. England named same squad for third test, but doors left open. You've also got this one. Fighting helped me find myself. I found a purpose, and that my presence on earth matters. That's UFC's Paige Van Zandt on dealing with the trauma of her youth. So
we've been hanging out with the Wicklow footballers and sisters Laura and Sarah Hogan about the hashtag serious support in their lives. Have a look.
My girls were a bit of tomboys, playing with the boys. There was no girls' football team. I remember being here one day in the sitting room and the next thing the ball landed in beside me. But sure, that's the joys.
Mammy used to bring us everywhere. She was always on the road with us, so I suppose you have to be very thankful for that, because if it wasn't for her bringing us places, we wouldn't be in the position that we're in now, because we wouldn't have been able to play.
We're next door neighbours of the Hogans, so especially Laura would have grown up a lot in our house, playing with our kids who were much younger, and inevitably there was always a football.
When we were growing up, you know, when we were kids, we could just go missing from here and we'd be up the road playing football with Rory's daughter and son, Rory and Ciara. Like, you know, we could go missing for hours on end and we'd be up there playing football.
Football, I suppose, is their life. They act in a way off the pitch that is very kind of professional, I suppose, and on the pitch then the two of them give it their all. One plays in the backs, tries to stop a lot of scoring, and the other plays in the forwards, trying to put a couple of balls over the bar for us in the back of the net. Ladies senior football team without the Hogans would be, I suppose, a bit like akin to a car without wheels, or without two wheels anyway. The girls have a fantastic bond. It's just totally clear and obvious to see before any game.
I think it's great. Most of our, I think, best friends all play football, like the majority of them would. And so you're playing with your best friends.
They enjoy it, and I love football. I wouldn't be kept away from a match.
Going out with them onto the pitch, they're just not even like friends, they're like, once you step out on the pitch, it's like a family. I suppose everyone refers to the GAA as family, but it really is like.
I think it's because you just, when you're on the pitch, you would absolutely die for one another.
The pinnacle of the Hogan's career to date would be winning the All-Ireland Junior Championship in 2011.
I feel very nervous. I'd say I'd be as nervous as they would be. Maybe a little bit worse.
It was great as a neighbour to sit in the stand and watch that dream come to fruition.
I think it's so heartwarming, just to see how much it means to them as well. Like it's not only that it means something to us by playing, like it means something to the whole family. Like even our nieces and nephews, like the way they look up to us, because we're playing county as well. Like they just think it's a massive deal, and it's just so nice to see, and it makes it feel really rewarding. Like.
Laura and Sarah Hogan from the Wicklow football team there. Time now for Darren to run us through everything that's going on in the world of sport. Darren.
Morning, Ger. Mayo manager Stephen Rochford has appeared to put a stop to speculation about his future today. Reports suggest that he has told the county board he wants to stay on for next season. The Crossmolina man hasn't spoken publicly since Mayo were dumped out of the All-Ireland Championship at the hands of Kildare in the qualifiers. Jim McGuinness was linked with the post yesterday, but it appears Rochford is staying put. He was given a 2-year extension to his term last October. The exodus of members of his backroom has intensified speculation in recent days. Tony Buckley, Peter Burke and Tony McEntee all departed their roles recently. Well, Paul McGinley believes that Rory McIlroy is an average golfer compared to some of the top players in the world at this very moment. 4 years after his last major victory at Valhalla, McIlroy carded a final round of 70 at the PGA Championship to finish 2 under par. McGinley was a guest on Off the Ball last night, and he feels McIlroy is lacking that X factor at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, overall, golf is a simple game in very many ways, and yes, it's important to hit the ball a long way and drive it, but you've got to have the scoring clubs. You've got to be absolutely fantastic with the scoring clubs. You look at Dustin Johnson, how good he is with his wedges, Brooks Koepka with his putter. I mean, Justin Thomas the same. These guys are fabulous, absolutely fabulous, and Rory's always, he's only average, and sometimes the putting is good, like it was in Firestone a few weeks ago, but the wedge play is not great. Then the wedge play is not so bad, and then the putting's off. And those scoring clubs are absolutely paramount for the start. And the other thing is, and I think we all need to take a step away and realise that Rory's not, this perception that Rory plays his best, he wins. That's not applicable anymore. There's 3 guys at the moment who you'd have to say are better players than Rory if they're on the game. Brooks Koepka, Justin Thomas and Dustin Johnson.
Well, Ireland's James Scully came home 5th in the final of the opening event of the World Para Swimming European Championships in Dublin yesterday. The Meath man just outside the medals in the 200 metres freestyle S5. Alva Kelly finished 7th in the final of the SMA 200 metres individual medley. Nicole Turner competed in the final of the 50 metre freestyle S6, where she finished in 6th place. Celtic look to end a bad week on a winning note in the Champions League. They travelled to Greece for their qualifier with AEK Athens, with the scores tied at 1-1 in the 3rd qualifying round. Since then, Celtic have fallen to a shock league defeat to Hearts and have had rumours that Brendan Rodgers was set to resign. They have quashed those. That game begins at 7 o'clock this evening. While Ian Wright believes the criticism of Manchester City forward Raheem Sterling is the direct result of racism. The 23-year-old has been a tabloid punching bag ever since his breakthrough at Liverpool. The most insignificant details of his life have been picked apart and derided in what have become front-page news stories. The Englishman has faced negative media attention for much of his career, and Wright says the reason for that is simply down to the colour of his skin. He's told the BBC, "I think there is an agenda against Sterling. There is an element of people at the high end of the media who want to keep that guy down. Simple. When you look at the wave of criticism that he takes, there's a certain amount of racism towards it. What else can it be?" Well, La Liga have put pen to paper on a landmark rights deal with Facebook. It will allow the social network users in the Indian subcontinent to watch every game over the next 3 seasons for free on the website. It's the latest in a number of sports rights purchases that have been sold to online media outlets. Earlier this year, Amazon won rights to show 20 English Premier League matches at the start of the season from 2019. Well, the PGA Championship exclusively available on 11 Sports. The first 2 rounds of that event were broadcast exclusively on Facebook.
Looking forward to getting my geo-blocker and setting it to Indian or somewhere on the Indian area, really. That's where my geo-blocker is going to be for the time being. Just pure coincidence. Just want to see what sort of stuff they can get online.
The only thing is when you go into your Netflix, then you'll have to watch all the Bollywood movies.
I'm a big fan of Bollywood, so all good by me, Darren.
Done? You're done?
Yeah.
Good stuff, Darren. Thanks for that. Now, so yesterday, Maura Trosney-Kelly caught up with Jack McCaffrey at the launch of the 23rd Asian Gaelic Games, which is sponsored by Fexco. It's going to take place on the 17th and 18th of November in Bangkok, Thailand.
I'm joined here by Dublin's Jack McCaffrey. We're just having a little bit of bilingual discussion here. We go between Gaeilge agus Béarla. Cachords a chust tatus a glyphicand the but it's been a very long road for you. I mean, cruciate injuries, you don't want to put a time frame on it. You never know when you come back. And even when you do come back, you're a little bit ginger, I'm sure, when you're walking on it first and then trying to run. And it must have been a very long process physically and mentally.
Yeah, definitely. It was a long couple of months, and as you said, I really just try to avoid that whole pitfall of putting a time and date on it, because I think you just set yourself up to miss that, and that would obviously be very disappointing. But really happy with how it's all panned out, to be honest, and it's great to be able to get back from it, and I think it'll stand to me, hopefully.
It's not uncommon for athletes when they do come back from an injury like that I suppose a little bit careful or a little bit nervous. Did you find when you first came back training and maybe your first game that there was a little bit of, should I go in for that one? Or were you, because it's very, very rare for somebody to be able to compartmentalise it and just say, that's done, my cruciate is exactly the way it was. You carry a little bit of fear with it.
Fear probably wouldn't be the right word, but I agree with you. I think what happens is you go out to play and someone just hits your shoulder, or you get a bang in the leg or something like that, and the injury's just gone, then you're kind of fully in it. So it's not something I worry about at all now, but it's definitely it's quite a psychological thing, getting the confidence back, I'd imagine, in that initial kind of return to play type time period. But thankfully that's a good bit behind me.
The Dublin team, when we watch you are fluid. It's nearly like a musical song. Every note works, every key works most of the time. You see it, there's a rhythm to it. Sometimes I do feel that you guys don't get the kudos you deserve for what you've achieved. I don't want to say it's begrudgery, but the first few years it was like, aren't Dublin great, look what they've done. Now people want to knock you down, and there's not much people can knock you with, so we start knocking the fact that maybe you guys don't seem to enjoy it as much as other teams. Does that ever bother you?
No, it doesn't, to be honest. I think it's natural enough that when a team is doing well, that they'll kind of have people coming after them, but in terms of enjoyment, well, I think we're all really enjoying ourselves. We can't exactly walk around with a big sign that says that, but if you want to take my word for it, we're having a good time. So if people don't see that, or sometimes maybe they don't want to see that's completely up to them.
I suppose where that might come from, I'll just use the last game you played as an example against Galway. It wasn't a great game anyway for the neutral or any spectator to watch. The first half was quite enjoyable, but the second half, when I was watching it, there were times when I could see Dublin players getting into position, and if they wanted to, they could have boosted on the gas and gone and done something, but it just felt a little bit that you're very systematic in your play, which is great. It's a great achievement, but I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I just noticed it.
Okay. I think it's probably a bit easier to sit here and say that guy should just run the pitch than actually doing it. It was quite a tough physical game on the weekend, and I tell you, there were some sore bodies after it, so there's probably a bit of that. Like, the game is played at such a high pace and such an intensity that you kind of have to conserve energy when the chance comes available. And the other thing is that scoring chances can, in a lot of games, are few and far between, so you want to make sure that the right person is taking a shot, as opposed to someone like me just kicking the ball from 50 yards, which rarely ends well. But there are some lads on our team who in that situation would shoot because they can, and I'd probably take a man on a bit quicker than some other lads, and everyone has their strengths, and you just kind of, I suppose we're experienced enough now to know that we have to play to our strengths, and I don't really know, I can't defend things too much. Like, I think we're going about our business the right way.
You are as well personally. I think one of the things people admire about you is that you're Jack McCaffrey the person. You're not Jack McCaffrey the footballer. You've gone to college, you started your career, you were happy enough to step away to further your own career, and you came back from an injury as well, and you just do it your way, and people like that about you, because that's always a bit of a pitfall, isn't it? Some people can fall into, I am the footballer, and other things can slide.
I'm sure you can. Like, it's such a massive part of your life that it can be very easy to kind of let it consume everything, but it's something that we have worked on as a team over the years, and I think kind of maybe just naturally evolved into, that we're all quite aware of that whole work-life balance, and just where your priorities are, and making sure that everyone, if things off the pitch aren't going well, it'll invariably kind of translate into your performances. So it's very important to make sure that everything is dandy, and obviously that's not going to be the case all the time. Things are going to happen, but you just kind of get on with it, which I've said about 5 times in this interview, but just that's the approach.
It was a brave thing to do, though, to walk away from that panel, because of all the teams, it's very, very hard to get a starting 15 in Dublin, and you know, it was brave. You probably didn't feel brave at the time.
No, I don't. I don't think brave is the word, but yeah, it was kind of the headspace I was in at the time. I wasn't particularly loving football, and you know, as I alluded to already, once that starts, you're not playing very well, and there was just a lot going on. So yeah, I just made the decision to go do something a bit different for a summer, and it thankfully worked out very well.
And was it perhaps that you weren't enjoying the football because you had that itch that you wanted to do that thing, or did going away for the summer come because you weren't enjoying the football?
I think it came because I wasn't enjoying the football, to be honest. You know, it wasn't that I had a burning desire to go away for a summer and that football had to take a back seat as a result. It was just that football was taking a back seat, and so I had a summer to play with. And yeah, so that's kind of how that worked out.
Finally, All-Ireland final. To get to one is an achievement. To win one is absolutely amazing. I know you're going to say 4 in a row doesn't mean anything to you, but the fact it's just, they're all worthy of their own merits. But it must be great to go home every once in a while and look and see those medals on the mantelpiece, wherever you keep them, and just think, I did that.
Yeah, I haven't kind of gotten to that stage in my life that I'm looking back and taking stock of things, but it's certainly something I look forward to doing one day.
Where do you keep your medals, actually?
Mum has them stored somewhere securely. She wouldn't trust me with that knowledge, so I'll have to go home and ask her where they're.
This will sound crass when I put it, but you know the sentiment I mean when I say this. Do Dublin footballers appreciate the beauty of having that Celtic cross? Do you understand that they're not that easy to come by, I suppose, because a bit like the Kilkenny hurlers, year after year you're there?
Yeah, I can guarantee you that we do. You know, we all grew up supporting Dublin in a time when they were very, very few and far between. There's a lot of us who've had family members involved with Dublin in the past. My father, for example, who never won All Ireland, and it's something that something I'm always kind of conscious of, that these are really, really special days, and it's definitely not something we take for granted at all.
So Jack McCaffrey talking with Mark Trossan Kelly yesterday at Croke Park for the launch of the 23rd Asian Gaelic Games, which will take place in Bangkok on the 17th and 18th of November. He's just an interesting character. Bit of depth there too.
Yeah, definitely. There was, I think there is obviously this conversation about Dublin and whether or not they appreciate everything they do, and the criticism of that. Like, I don't subscribe to that one bit. I don't subscribe to the idea that they don't enjoy or they don't appreciate with the achievement whatsoever. Like, it's a deep sense of satisfaction, and I think it's just channeled through Jim Gavin, which is subsequently channeled through quite a lot of the players. And I don't want to say it's like a slipping of a mask, but like Jack McCaffrey after the game, the last day after getting to another All-Ireland final, literally said on national television he was buzzing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure what more people want.
I think if you remember back to how people thought about the Kilkenny hurlers, and now what we know about that Kilkenny hurling group having the time of their lives.
Yeah.
Having the time of their lives at training sessions, in the middle of games, on the bus to matches, on their team holidays, and then generally just in their lives, because they're at the absolute elite of their sports history. Like, any of the Dublin footballers who come in to do stuff here tend to be in pretty good form. Life is going okay for most of them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the key word. Life is going pretty good for most of them. It's ironic, isn't it, that they are the one team where you can say, if we were to kind of break down who's got the best kind of career setup and who's got the best personal life setup as a result of Gaelic Games, well, Dublin are right up there. Now, it helps that you're winning and it helps that you've got a big profile for sure, but it also seems that there's a huge influence in all of that. And in fact, I think we know that there's a huge influence on that from Jim Gavin's perspective, because a lot of the players have told us, and that just feeds into their general happiness. Everything is given preference in terms of their own personal life rather than in terms of Gaelic football, and the Gaelic football follows suit after a while. Now, granted, I do accept that if you're losing every single year, if you're only getting 2 championship games a summer and you're not getting the profile that your efforts may deserve, then that may impact otherwise as well. So
for sure,
it's easier.
Let's move on and talk about UFC. McGregor versus Khabib. We kind of expected it to happen. It is going to happen. Gareth Davies is with us now to talk to us a little bit about what we can expect and when the hype starts to kick into overdrive for this. Gareth, before we talk about the specifics of the fight itself, it kind of feels like UFC need this fight, that Dana White and everybody on the corporate side of the organisation could really do with an absolute blockbuster of a build-up and a fight itself, just to remind everybody that UFC is in fact brilliantly well run, perfectly organised and a progressive organisation.
Well, a very good morning to you, gentlemen.
How you doing?
I see your jawline, Jer. It means you've been in training. Yes, a point very well made. I mean, I don't think we've spoken since the fight was announced. I think that's correct.
Yeah.
And it is it's a massive fillip for the UFC to have got Conor McGregor back into an octagon, into the UFC's fighting arena, frankly, and against Khabib Nurmagomedov as well, because, you know, when Endeavour, IMG WME, bought the UFC nigh on 3 years ago for $4.5 billion US, it left them with a massive mortgage to pay, gents, you know, and, you know, this will be the biggest selling MMA fight in history on pay-per-view. There's no question about it. It will be enormous because of the generation that you mentioned, Conor, the generation that he carries with him. And as many people are tuning in to see if he's going to get his butt kicked as they are to see if he can show the genius in his great Irish bones, you know. And I think it will be massive, and it will... What it will do, it will bring. If it delivers as a fight, it'll bring a lot of credibility back for the UFC, whose stars have burnt brightly and burnt out. Ronda Rousey's in the WWE right now. She was a massive star like Conor. Brock Lesnar's back and forth WWE and into MMA again between failed drugs tests. John Jones is on the sidelines. He's probably the greatest mixed martial arts fighter of all time. So Conor's return, my God, I can't tell you how excited I was when the fight was announced for October the 6th a couple of weeks ago. I think it was 63 days before they fought. And my first thought was, it's only 9 weeks. Hooray! And I'll be in Vegas in 8 weeks' time to cover it. He's very, very special. Whether you love him or loathe him, he is the biggest star in the UFC. He is one of the biggest stars in combat sports. I don't know if you would count him as the biggest sports star in Ireland, maybe.
I would
question for you, Jeff.
Say profile-wise, it's pretty much no question, isn't it? On an international scale currently. Like, just on that a little bit, it is kind of a double whammy having Conor McGregor back involved, because just thinking about it, and you may be able to shed a bit more light on this, the profile of Khabib Nurmagomedov was pretty big amongst MMA fans, amongst people who watched UFC fight nights, who watched UFC pay-per-views, who were big into their mixed martial arts. But it was only about 6 months ago when this fight started to get touted that the wider world, the wider sporting world and the wider Irish public, and up from other countries indeed as well, started to realise who this guy was. And the reason why they realised who he was because of his associations with Conor McGregor. So the protracted nature of the negotiations, the incident in Brooklyn, and the way this is all played out has just in a very implicit way built the profile of Nurmagomedov, and subsequently, once the fight was announced, built the profile and the hype that is going to explode now over the next 6 weeks.
Definitely, there's no question about it. You know, funnily enough, last night shouldn't admit this, but I watched 2 episodes back to back of the Apprentice USA. Yeah, when Donald Trump was, you know, you're fired. You know, and it was compelling stuff. And it was before he was president of the United States. Yeah, and I could completely see why a lot of people were taken in by Donald Trump, the idea of Donald Trump being the man that was leading the country, or the man that was leading, you know, the country that leads the free in the Western world, as America likes to be seen. Conor is the soap, and what I'm saying is Conor is the soap opera of fight sports, as well as being a grand star and a mover and shaker and a lightning rod for change. He brings with him he is the A side every time he fights. Even when he fought Floyd Mayweather last summer, extraordinarily, he was as much the A side as Floyd Mayweather. Now, Khabib Nurmagomedov, yes, he wasn't that well known. He is 26-0 undefeated. He is the kid that, I tell you what he's known best for, gents, the kid that wrestled with a bear.
Yeah.
That's what he was known as, that viral video that he'd wrestled with the bear. He's not a great personality. I mean, in fact, if anything, PR has turned against him in the last couple of weeks, where, him and his friends are found to be giving money, donating money to homeless people, making them do press-ups. I don't know if you've seen that at all. And it was kind of treated as cruel by the fans. The fact that Conor is a bigger star than Khabib, a much, much bigger star, has also brought to the fore that Khabib is mentally weak in this fight in some ways. I've seen this already, where he's complaining that why should he be the money fight for the UFC and Conor McGregor? I've seen him complaining in a video that he's only going to earn a certain amount of money. Now, I think that really plays into Conor's hands, because Conor's not fighting for money. He is fighting for money, but he's fighting to get his athletic prowess back. The big fight I think people would have liked as well is Nate Diaz. If Khabib gets injured in the meantime, a trilogy fight with Nate Diaz would also be loved by the fans, because he's a big star himself. But this guy is he's just enormous. I mean, I was looking at some videos I'd done with Conor in the past and pictures with him, and you can't get the guy now. You can't get to him. He doesn't. It's like Ali's vow of silence before he fought Spinks. Conor doesn't have to do anything in the build-up. He puts out an Instagram picture, and 1.3 million people like it. I mean, it's just extraordinary, I mean.
So, do we know how much McGregor is actually being given to fight, or is this the traditional arrangements that the UFC have always had with a fighter, where he's getting a set fee, and is he getting a share of the pay-per-views? Have they rewritten the rule book to get McGregor back? Because, you talked about the mortgage that the owners took out when they paid $4 billion odd. McGregor always said he wanted a piece of the company. They were never going to give him that, but they might be giving him untold money. Like, do we know any of the details about the finances?
Well, some of the very biggest stars through the last decade, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, people like that, were always given a percentage of the pay-per-view. There's no question he'll be getting a percentage, yeah. So I think, my understanding is that it won't be short of 25 million he'll be getting, yeah. And when you look at the fight probably generating, potentially, if it does 2 million pay-per-view buys, this is a $140 million fight. So, don't be surprised if he earns 30 million from this fight. It's still an extraordinary amount of money for one fight. Could even be more, but I understand that he may be getting 25 million and a share of pay-per-view.
Okay, that makes sense.
It does. So, the bigger the event, or the bigger the promotion of it, the more he's going to get from it. I mean, I don't think we've seen him. I don't know what your view is. I don't think we've seen him go into overdrive over promotion. The promotion is the Mac is back, and that's all they needed. It's just extraordinary, really. I mean, that's all he needs to do was to come back.
It will be interesting to see exactly whether or not he is committed to selling those pay-per-views, or if they sell themselves, and how that whole thing works out, and what the next 7 weeks in the build-up to this fight are actually going to be like. Because I guess real questions persist about whether or not Conor McGregor will still have the appetite for a fight against somebody who is as talented and as strong and as old and as cultured a fighter as Khabib is. Like, here is somebody who stated that he was in the fight game to get rich. He's got rich. His dreams have been fulfilled. He's a two-time champ. He's the champ. So, like, is he going to be the same fighter? Like, we know how many fighters lose their edge when they make it, because that was the whole thing that gave them the hunger and the edge in the first place.
Well, you used the word there that was just kind of on the tip of my tongue, which was hunger, you know. And if you talk to John Kavanagh, his coach at SPG there in Dublin, the hunger is there. There's a hunger to prove himself again. Look, there's no question that, you know, his legitimacy as a great fighter will be enhanced enormously with a victory in this fight against a man who doesn't have a great style for him, you know. Conor has to go to work in this fight, show his hunger, and really do a number on Khabib. I don't think he's got 25 minutes to do it. He's been out of action for a long time, out of action in MMA for nearly 34 months by the time he fights. I mean, it's a very long time. Is that right? No, sorry, 22 months. 60s? No, it's 2 years, isn't it? I mean, it's a very long time. So, you know, you can count the fact he trained for Floyd Mayweather, but it was a completely different type of training. But the thing is with Conor, and then the thing is with fights like this, styles make fights. It's not a style that suits him. Having said that, he has been brilliant at shocking opponents by the angles and the strikes and the punches that have and the kicks that have landed on his opponents. I mean, I genuinely have seen fear on the faces of, you know, in Dublin of Diego Brandao, in Vegas of Dustin Poirier. Look what he did mentally to Jose Aldo. He broke him before the fight. He's done it to so many people. He came back and he beat Nate Diaz after being beaten by him once. He went straight back in got on the horse and fought the guy again. And he went through the same tunnel of pain. He came out the other end and he beat him. He's got the ability to surprise people. He's got the ability to do the unthinkable. He's got the ability, as I say, to bring out the genius in his own bones. And I think Khabib Nurmagomedov is not difficult to hit for a southpaw. We've seen that against previous opponents like Michael Johnson. Conor hits like a steam train for his weight class, and it would not surprise me to see him knock Khabib out inside 7 minutes. I think he's got 8 to 9 minutes, 9 minutes max to get the job done. I think he'll be prepared to be taken to the ground once, and he could survive that. But he's got to let his hands go. He's got to have great footwork and lateral movement. And in my view, he will knock Khabib out.
Let's show you this video that you mentioned there a few moments ago, Gareth. So this is the video involving Khabib and a couple of homeless people. It's not great viewing.
That Khabib handing the money over. Yeah.
Jar making sure that if he ever is drunk and people get him to do press-ups in the street, he will actually get the money at the end. Yeah, it's very cruel. I can't do it.
Pretty grim, isn't it? Yeah, just in case anybody wonders, obviously the people laughing at it, his buddies on the video filming it. I mean, you know, it's funny. I didn't really think that anybody was going to be able to give Conor McGregor the moral high ground, but Khabib might have found a way.
Exactly. Well, listen, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? You know, Conor McGregor can throw a metal fence or a metal object at a bus, a metal object the size of a person at a bus, and smash all the windows, and it kind of end up in court in front of a judge in New York Police Department's offices as well, and or their cells. You know, he can walk out of arrest with his hands behind his back, looking like some kind of criminal, and it can be, you know, headlines around the world. And there's something, you know, that's a cruel video of that maybe makes a mockery of the fact that Conor isn't given a harder time over some of the things that he does. But, you know, he is a genius at PR. Khabib, through that video you've just seen, you know, that was on social media, is clearly, you know, a PR idiot. I mean, it defies logic. And the thing is about Conor, everything he does, and he has done some crass things, almost everything he does is laced with humour, or it's so extraordinarily outrageous that you wonder if it's a stunt anyway. You know, I mean, you saw the picture at the World Cup final, but there he is sitting in Putin's suite at the World Cup final. He's a very, very loved and influential sports figure. You know, and it's just an extraordinary story. That's why it's so exciting. It's not just the fights around him; it's everything. I hope the Irish are travelling, because again, Las Vegas, the shops, the betting shops, the sports books, the restaurants, the casinos, the staff, the Las Vegans, they just love it every time the Irish come, because they get into groups of 100, 200, 300 in a casino, and they all jump up and down. They don't cause any trouble, or little or no trouble. The security is standing there watching, going, what do we do here? And 2 hours later, they're best friends with the security, because you know what the Irish are like when they're at sport. They're greatest fans in the world. And let's hope that that's what we see again in Las Vegas on October the 6th.
Gareth, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Pleasure, gents.
Gareth Davies with us this morning to give us a view on how the McGregor-Khabib fight is being perceived around the world.
Do you think McGregor cares about being loved? He mentions there, Gareth, about that possibility that he's one of the most loved sports people around the world. Is he trying to wield influence of some sort?
Who knows? He's trying to make money.
Is it as simple as that, as black and white as that?
Yeah, I think so, no? Do you know?
Maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know. I think I wouldn't be surprised on this press trip, whatever the press plan is, that we see a different version of Conor McGregor.
You think?
There is definitely an element of the Conor McGregor shtick that was part of creating the brand, because you absolutely have to create the brand. Like we spoke to Will Fleury here in studio a couple of months ago, and he says it is of vital importance for any mixed martial arts fighter, not just a UFC fighter, to build their brand like that. What more does he have to build from that? Like, unless that is a purely authentic version of him, which I don't believe it is. I believe it's an exaggerated version of him. I think there is plenty of authenticity in it, but I don't think it's a full, honest version of him, the one that we get in press conferences. So I'd be very, very interested to see how he approaches the hype game for this, because ultimately with that video we just viewed there with Khabib and the homeless people, as you say, he's given Conor McGregor the moral high ground there, and McGregor knows when he's got an opportunity, and maybe he's got an opportunity here to go and run with it. But then again, he probably doesn't care.
No, I don't think so. I think he got there in the end. Right, here's Brian McGuigan speaking on last night's show about Mickey Hart's future as Tyrone manager.
Well, the Tyrone supporters kind of blew the wind a wee bit whenever they're losing. They want rid of Mickey. But, to take this team to an All-Ireland final is, it's brilliant for him, what he's done. For the man himself, I'm sure he's got plenty of hate mail like the rest of them, but he's so strong that he just wouldn't listen to it. And the intriguing thing is that we're talking about how Tyrone have changed the game. They haven't changed that much. The amount of abuse they got last year for the way they played against Dublin, I believe that they're still playing the exact same road. They're realistically against Donegal and Monaghan yesterday, they played Richie Downey up front in his own. But I think Stephen O'Neill has come in and tweaked the way they attack and the way they're getting scores and the movement of the players up front whenever they do have the ball. But I think I have a sneaky suspicion that if Tyrone do manage to win this All-Ireland, Mickey could get his piece and he might even walk away after it. And it probably, if he won the All-Ireland, it would be his greatest achievement of all of them.
Yeah, well, it would definitely be his greatest achievement, because the current team are nowhere near as good as Brian McGuigan's team. For a start, it doesn't have Brian McGuigan, or Stephen O'Neill, or Sean Cavan in his pomp, or Peter Canavan, or Muggsy, or the defenders probably don't get as much credit as they deserve.
No, Ryan McManaman. There's no question about that. There's also no question that their Tyrone team didn't face anything like this Dublin team. It's kind of a double whammy of greatness when it comes to the achievement.
That Kerry team was pretty good.
It was excellent. It was very, very good. It was the best team of the century until this Dublin team came along.
Well, the Tyrone team were.
No, they weren't.
They beat them in Croke Park every time they played. Let's move on.
How many All-Irelands they have, doesn't matter.
Conor Nash is on the line. Good morning to you, Conor, all the way from Australia. How you doing?
How's it going, Ger?
Yeah.
How's it going on? You well?
Pretty good. You had a good weekend. You made your debut.
Yeah, it was a great weekend, all right. In a big game as well, and to get the 4 points at this stage of the season is massive for our finals hope. So hopefully we can kick on now and have a good finals campaign.
You must have known a little earlier in the week, I think, that you were actually in the shake-up to make your debut. So what's that build-up like? When do you get the nod? When do you have that conversation? What's that process?
Yeah, so I found out on the Wednesday. I was actually down to a hot springs resort with the family down the peninsula, just bringing them down for a look. And Alistair Clarkson, our head coach, gave me a ring saying would the parents delay their flight a few days because I was going to be making my debut at the MCG against the Cats. So I was actually driving, so it was on loudspeaker and everyone was in the car. So the car erupted after that, and it was a massive build-up from there on in.
That's class.
Yeah, it was brilliant, man. Because I had been in the mix a couple of weeks prior, and we thought the boat had gone because the parents were flying home that Thursday night before that game. So for the club to ask them to hang on and what we played the MCG, it was a massive honour.
And for them to share that moment with you as well, it's a special moment in any young professional person's life to be told, all that hard work, all that dedication, the decision to leave home, the decision to turn your back on a bunch of other careers for this one moment, to share that live in person with your folks, it's pretty special.
Yeah, no, like I said, it was a very special moment for myself and the family. Because it's been a long journey, I suppose, and there was it's certainly a different route to what I thought I would be making a few years ago, or what my parents thought I'd be going down. But it's just a bit of a reward for all the hard work that's gone in. And last year I was in a completely different stage. Last year, just coming back from a bad injury, so to get to this stage now is it's very pleasing. All right.
Because if anybody is unaware, there's a couple of other careers that I'm talking about. You could have done medicine in college. You could have played rugby for Leinster. Certainly they'd offered you an academy contract. And also, you're not bad at the Gaelic football too. So none of those doors are closed to you forever, obviously, with the decision to go to Australia. But, I mean, you must in your head have made the decision that you're going to have to go properly full bore to try and become a professional Aussie rules player. So it's a big moment.
Yeah, it was. And it was 2 years ago, I suppose, when I was smack bang in the middle of my leaving cert year. I had an offer. I came back from Australia from a 2-week stint with a contract in my hand, and I immediately told the Leinster rugby boys what the story was and what was on that side of the table, and they had a chat with me and just gave me a few weeks from to make a decision. So I made a decision then to go the Aussie rules route, and I haven't looked back since. And like you said, if you make a decision, you have to go at it 100%. It was tough times back then, trying to make a decision. You might say, oh, Jesus, great as a young lad to have those options on the table, but it was a tough decision in the end, but one I certainly don't regret in any way.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one when you look at the slew of Irish athletes who've gone to Australia. A lot of them have come from a position where their only option of being an elite athlete at home would have been through GAA and through an amateur sport. And I think a lot of times it's very easy for us to brush off the opportunity as one that, they went for professionalism because, they want to get paid to play and all that sort of stuff. Whereas for you, that opportunity was quite real to have that at home, to become a professional athlete at home. So that makes that all the more difficult, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it certainly was. That factor wasn't in my decision at all, because I could have had that at home. But I think the main one that got me over the line down under was just a new experience and a new adventure. It certainly wasn't foreign. I'd been training for a few years prior to that, but to actually make the decision to fly out to the other side of the world and set up camp there and go at a new sport is pretty daunting. But it certainly was that new experience was the main aspect that got me over the line that way. But yeah, it has been fantastic so far.
It's got a reputation as a bit of a family club. I know Conor Glass from Derry is there, and I know you also live with a bunch of, or are you moving in with a bunch of other Irish lads who are playing Aussie rules at the moment? There's a kind of proper community of expats there, as well as the fact that the club kind of look after its players.
Yeah, the club has been fantastic. They certainly made the family feel welcome while they were here, and it really is a band of brothers when you're out there. But we also do have a very tight-knit group amongst the Irish boys. There's probably 7 or 8 of us here in Melbourne, and I think there's 12 or 13 in the AFL and as a whole. But we meet up quite regularly, just whether it's coffee, lunch, or whatever. Like Kieran Byrne, Conor McKenna, Ray Cannell and Dara Joyce. And myself and Conor Glass are actually going to move in with Killian McDade this next season, so November or so we'll move in with him. So we really do, it's not like, they play for different clubs that we wouldn't really speak to them. It's kind of like we want to see all of the lads go well, and to be playing against each other each week. I know when I was chatting to Zach Toohey and Mark Connor after the game there on Saturday, yes, they'd lost the game, but they were just proud that the 3 of us were right there on the same pitch together. So we really do get on well with each other, and it makes it that bit easier having that support network as well.
The hype video from during the week was released by the club as well. Have a look at this. This is...
Guys realise that the Irish Celtic are doing a tour of Australia at the moment. Just finished their show in Melbourne, about to go to Sydney, and is a promotion for the event. They've got the 3 Conors, Conor McGregor, Conor Glass and Conor Nash to be draw cards for the show. So these boys have been in there in the last week or so. Conor Nash, Conor Glass, Conor McGregor thought to themselves, well, we could do something a little bit better than that. So let's have a look at this. We wanted to make a feature of that because Conor Nash is playing his first game for the Hawks.
That's amazing. Had you any idea at that point, Conor, that call-up was going to come?
Yeah, I'd known the day before when Clark would call me, and he said just to keep it quiet, just to have, I suppose, that bit of emotion from the lads in the room. But the only people I told was the family obviously were there, and then Conor Glass was the only other one. So we was kind of hush-hush for the hour or two before that meeting the next day. So, yeah, it was pure emotion when that happened, pure joy. So the boys were ecstatic.
Do you do a bit of river dancing in your spare time? Is that something that you've was keeping in character?
Nah. I think we've got up once or twice in front of the lads. I think on Paddy's Day this year we did a little jig, but I didn't do myself justice, I don't think.
How did your debut go? How did you play? Like afterwards, were you happy with your performance? Is the debut really about getting it out of the way so the emotion of that is gone and then you concentrate on your performance, or were you able to actually just concentrate on the performance and park the emotion until afterwards? How did that work for you?
Yeah, that's what was kind of a focus of mine going into the game, was to park the emotion and all the stuff with the family and things like that, was to actually just focus on what my role was. So I certainly did that, and they were very happy with how I went about that. So, yeah, I think that's what a lot of the older lads would have said to me during the week, is just focus on the little things to get you into the game, because once that happens, it's just another game of footy in the end. So that's what I was focusing on, really, and it went well, and I was very happy with how I played. And so we'll see what happens this week with selection and that, but it was great, like you said, to get the first one out of the way is always a big plus.
What's your game, Conor? What do you play?
My type of role?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Well, I suppose it's a bit unique in a way in that I'm tall, but I've a bit of speed and about me and athleticism. So it's kind of like a half forward role up and down the ground. On the outside, I know I was playing a lot of wing at Box Hill level, which is the reserves. So it's kind of up and it's like a half forward in Gaelic football, I suppose, or even a half back. But you're just up and down, bring the ball from one end to the other, and if we get the ball in space, just run with it is the main thing. But at the weekend, I suppose, was more laying pressure is a big thing that they like up forward, is that when the ball hits the deck, is that you're able to compete pretty hard and lay tackles. So that was what I was focusing on, really.
And what would your game have been as a Gaelic footballer?
Was definitely probably my run, the same thing, using my athletic attributes. Just probably running with the ball. If I get space, just take it and take off. That was my main one, up and down the ground. Were certainly my attributes, and then from kickouts and that, high feeling. So they're probably the ones I've tried to bring across as best as I can.
Did Colin O'Rourke try and make you were a midfielder for him for Simonstown, was that right?
Yeah, I was, yeah. Yeah, he's played a big part in my Gaelic football career, I suppose. He's tried to play a big part in my rugby career by ending it a few times, but Gaelic, I suppose I've always played midfield with St. Pat's and then Simonstown in the latter years. But yeah, no, midfield was probably always the main one.
And where did you play rugby? What position?
I was fullback, yeah. So it was kind of a bit unique in that I was a tall lad at fullback, but yeah, no, I love fullback. You kind of just stay out of the hard work and pick your gaps and away you go. They were the main ones for me.
Is that a rugby ball on the shelf behind you, Conor?
It is actually, yeah. Up there it is, yeah. No, I stick true to, I've got a Simon Gales top over there in the corner as well. So, yeah, still very much present in my life.
Tommy Rooney wants to see the Simonstown Gales top there. Can you show us it?
Yeah, I'll grab it here. Hang on.
This is the Meath Mafia making sure that they're represented properly. Tommy got the fastest black card in Meath Championship history. Ah, yeah, very nice. The number 9 and signed. There you go.
That was my last one, signed by all the lads. So means a fair bit. It's hanging up in the corner there.
How was the homesickness for you? Because like we've talked to a bunch of people who have made it out there, and there's just a common theme that it hits and you expect it. It's worse than you thought it was going to be, and then it's over. It never fully goes away, but you learn how to deal with it. Is that the same for you, or was it a different experience, or did you get it at all?
To be honest, I've been very good. I haven't got it much at all. I suppose coming over the couple of years prior, it really helped me, just getting a feel for where I was going to be living, the people around me. I suppose that was the main thing for me. But another big plus was having Conor Glass there with me as well. Like we live here together in a host family, who are a lovely family, look after us very well. So I suppose it's been easy that way. And then, like I said, with the support group of the rest of the lads, like they're never too far away. A lot of them here in Melbourne, so we do meet up. And if you were feeling homesick at all, you just flick the lads a text to catch up for whatever. So I think it's not really homesickness isn't really there the whole time. It's more like the events that you miss, like of a lot of 21st this year that I'll miss. Those type of things, but it's never really present the whole time.
It seems that community over there is like having a tangible effect on performances as well, and it's not just you, because it certainly seems that this generation of young ex-rugby players, ex-Gaelic football players, or potentially future again, who knows, that have gone over to Australia have succeeded, that there's a lot of debuts that have been handed out over the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, no, the lads are going very well. We have a great bunch here right at the moment. And yeah, I suppose they're training well, and it really has. It's great to see it. Like any time one of us makes a debut, it's thrown into the WhatsApp group. There's another one. Keep them coming from Ty Kennelly always says that one in. So we just like to see as many boys out there as we can. So it really is a massive thing for us to get one or two of them out there each week.
Listen, Conor, congratulations. It's brilliant for you and for the family. Well done. Keep it up. Thanks a million.
Thanks very much, Joe. Thanks, Eoin. Thanks a million.
Good stuff from Conor. It's amazing how well these lads are doing, you know, and so many of them at the moment.
Like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is as strong in terms of volume that we've seen in terms of Irish performers down in the AFL that are actually making it all the way to the AFL.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's probably been a bunch of players who were in that tier that didn't quite make it to the level where they were getting contracts and getting debuts and making it and sticking it out.
That has to have a difference, though, the fact that there is maybe better support services from the Aussies themselves to set up people coming, literally moving across the world.
Yeah.
But also, once you have one, the first one is so important.
You also wonder if, like, the fact that Skype and WhatsApp makes it free to call home and it's video calls and you can see what's happening, and it's like, well, I could be in Dublin, I could be in Cork, I could be in Galway, I'm just not in the same living room as you know?
The world's a smaller place for sure. It has to help though having the other Conor over there with him as well, Conor Glass, that kind of helped him bed in a little bit. And as I say, once that first domino falls and like these young Irishmen see that, you know, it's not always the case that somebody goes over and kind of has a couple of years and then goes back home, that it is possible to become another Ty Kennelly, that Ty Kennelly, Jim Steins, these people weren't outliers. These people can actually be the start of something, and it seems that there was just kind of a temporary lull, let's just say, in Irish success in the AFL.
Yeah. As a Kildare supporter, I'm delighted that Meath have one of their best young footballers playing in the AFL as well. It's like, we lost enough of them over the years, but most of ours came back.
I like the Simonstown jersey, actually. I'm not sure, I'm sure there's plenty of Meath people who'd be like, oh, look at the Meath players there wearing sky blue, which I'm sure was a classic under-14 jibe that might have been thrown around the place. But it's good jersey. We had a club GA conversation there recently, Simonstown up there.
Yeah, we could revisit that. Did we make enough of the fact that Tommy Rooney had one of the fastest black cards in...
This is a slot in itself. We should actually get a guest on to discuss this, I think.
Intermediate football, I think I incorrectly said it was junior again, forgetting the fact that, of course, they won promotion last year.
You see, the thing is, we can't actually screw Tommy over here because he literally produces the show. We can't just like slide an image in to show you guys that it was actually the fastest, or it was the quickest substitution ever or something.
50 seconds, I think.
50 seconds.
Apparently he was like, oh no, it was a complete accident. And then video evidence emerged that suggested that maybe Tommy wasn't the best analyst of his own performance.
Yeah, he brutally body checked an opponent is what happened.
Yeah, straight off the bench.
Straight off the bench, first thing in. Maybe there was kind of like a campaign of cynicism. It's sleeping into our game, Ger. We need to stamp it out.
Meath Hill's Thomas Rooney replaced fullback Martin Tully in the 50th minute and was the recipient of a black card some 90 seconds later. He was replaced by Mark Tully. Video evidence has emerged. I don't know if we can actually put this up there, but... Oh, the referee is like a yard away from the actual incident itself, where he just runs in and pushes somebody to the ground. All right.
That is an absolute, definite black card. We need to get that up on social media ASAP.
All right, let's move on from the ridiculous to the sublime. I'm delighted to say we've got Ciara Mageean with us this morning. Ciara, how are you doing?
Hiya, how are you? I'm good, thank you.
So, congratulations, and I guess some commiserations as well on an absolutely brilliant performance at the weekend. How do you feel with this bit of a remove that you were so close to getting a medal and yet you performed so brilliantly as well? What's your overriding takeaway?
It's bittersweet. I'm happy with my performance. I went out there and tried my best, but nobody wants to finish fourth. I went there to try to win a medal and fell short. So, yeah, I'm waking up. I'm not going to say upset. I'm not crying over it, but very, very much my fist clenched and hit the bed a bit, being like, so close. But no, it's left me hungry for more. So I don't know. Sometimes fourth place is probably the best place to be.
Yeah, they always say fourth place is the worst place to finish. As Ger said there's a number of things that you could point to from your performance at the weekend, which would suggest that it was a good finish because you look beyond the figure, you look beyond the fourth place finish, and you look at the performance.
Yeah. No, definitely. I went out there and I ran the race that I planned to do, and I executed it the way myself and my coach planned. And it literally came down to the last little stretch, and the British girls went out, and I think they deliberately went out hard to try to take a bit of the kick out of Eoin and myself, because they knew that we finished strong, and it worked. I just didn't have quite as strong a finish as I have throughout the season. So. Yeah, I'll come back better and stronger, and that's my aim, to have a good strong winter behind me and to be able to finish with a blistering finish off a similar pace. So, but yeah, take the positives. I've come a long way over the last couple of months. I moved to a new group in December, and it's been a lot of change, but it's all been positive, and I've improved step by step, and yeah, I'm going to take the positives and work on the negatives.
Can you just talk to us about that home stretch, Ciara? Because I think everybody who was watching it was just willing you on through the TV, and I think they were saying in the studio on RTE that they felt that you were going to get there in the end. It must have been one of those experiences where you're pushing yourself, where you're really trying to dig deep to find something, and it just wasn't there in the end. Yeah, definitely. And everybody was telling me, I thought you had it, I thought you had the medal, and that's what was going through my head. I was coming through strong, and I was like, yes. Yeah, just stay on Eoin, the Polish girl, stayed on her. Now she finished like a train and took off. But I could see Laura Whiteman, the British girl, in front of me, and I was like, you have her. Just do the same thing you've done every race so far this season, up tall and run through the line. And whenever I came to the point where I just wanted to kick in a little extra gear, I was like, oh no. We're stuck. The gear wasn't there. I'd already used all my gears, and I was up in 6 already and couldn't hit the nitro. So yeah, it was disappointing for me, because I really just wanted to. Whenever I play it back in my head, I'm like, oh, could have found something. But believe me, I was searching throughout my body to find an extra little bit to just push me on. And Laura Whiteman managed to find just a little bit to get an inch ahead of me and cross the line with her in third and me in fourth. So I'm pretty sure that home straight will haunt me for maybe the rest of my life. But yeah, that's sport. Well, that's the thing. Maybe it doesn't. Like, maybe you do find that extra gear. Do you think that's possible?
Oh, definitely. I'd have a good strong finish whenever I'm racing, and I think for me, what will really change that is becoming stronger as the season goes on and go into the winter season and into next season next year. I definitely think that people wonder if it's speed, but I'm fast. It's the fact that I know that I'm going to be strong enough to utilise my speed come the end, and I know that I'm going to get stronger over the next year. So I actually am really looking forward to the years ahead, because I had a taste here this weekend of what I can do, and I can be at the top table and compete against the best in Europe and the best in the world, all being well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what's ahead. I know I can improve.
It must have been a big deal for you as well, just putting in that performance, given what happened last summer in London, being 9 seconds off your personal best in the heats. Like, I'm not sure were we speaking to you in the aftermath of that at all. Like, it was clearly a very painful experience watching you kind of suffer like that and performing kind of way below par from your own perspective. And it's such a long wait, isn't it, to be on the very top stage again, almost a full 12 months before you can prove to the Irish public that Ciara Mageean deserves to be talked about in the breadth that she is talked about.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I probably didn't talk to you after that performance because I just didn't want to. I was licking my wounds, and I was very upset and sore after that race, and to walk away from a championship knowing that wasn't even the athlete that I expect to see in myself at that championship. Never mind what the Irish public expects, and I was bitterly disappointed after it. So to be able to come back out and to be up there racing where I want to race, that's important for me, and yeah, it shows me that it's there. Everybody tells me that class is permanent, so hopefully that championship proves that, and that I'll be a regular top finisher for Ireland in major champs, and that's my aim going forward, to always be in the finals and always be there contending. And look, anybody would know, once you're there knocking on the door, one day it's going to open and you're going to get the reward that you want. So this is what I plan to do for the rest of my senior career, is to constantly be there knocking. And whenever you have a race with a handful of girls all at a very similar level, there's only a certain number that can medal. So yeah, that's what I just got in my car. That's the way it is, and you throw us all on a track. Only somebody can medal and somebody's going to be disappointed. So I'm the one who walks away disappointed this championship, but hopefully not in the future.
And Ciara, what happened last year? What was the difference between this year and last year?
To be honest, people kind of ask me that, and they're like, "Oh, you're back." I never went anywhere. I was still out running in my Irish vest, training as always and working hard. But as any sports person will tell you, we're not robots. And I had a bad year where I wasn't on the form that I wanted to be. I was a little bit tired, a little bit kind of, I don't know if I was run down or what it was, but I just had a year where it was much harder for me. All of the simple things that I would have hoped for were quite difficult. But I think it shows the strength that I came through that year, and I kept my head, and I knew that wasn't a sign of everything to come for me. I was like, no, I'll get through this. This is the same as any of the other tough years I've ever had. I suppose it's slightly different. Sometimes it's nearly easier being injured because you know exactly why. I didn't know why I was running poorly last year and was searching for answers, and quite often whenever you do search for answers like that, you blame it on yourself and you take it all intrinsically, and it's quite hard then to come out as an athlete and build the confidence back up after you've literally tore yourself to pieces in a previous year. But yeah, I made a few changes, and it was all changes for me, really. I think moving to Manchester was fantastic for me mentally and physically. It was the right decision to do. Whenever I moved over, I had been living in Rathfarnham and renting a house with my landlord and my Croatian housemate Igor, and yeah, it was difficult. It wasn't like I was given 110%, trying to be the most professional that I could be, but it was a little bit harder to be as professional as I am now. So the move was the right move for me to come to Manchester and join Team New Balance Manchester, and I think it's really went from strength to strength.
Yeah, like obviously changing up coach from Jerry Kiernan to Steve Vernon was part of that move to Manchester, and you've spoken so highly of Jerry even in the aftermath of the fourth place finish on Sunday. So it's nothing to do with him as a negative when it comes to him coaching. Maybe it was just time for a change. Maybe a fresh mindset is the help and the main reason why this year has been a success for you.
Definitely, yeah. I think a lot of people like to think of it as I moved because I didn't want to be with Jerry. It was more of a move for me, myself, mentally. I'd been studying in Dublin for kind of 6, coming on 7 years, and I'd been living there. And I think a lot of people often say a change is as good as a rest. I respect Jerry so much as a coach and as a friend, and I do believe that Jerry could have kept improving and helped me get stronger and stronger and stronger. But for me, I just needed a change myself, just for my own mentality, and a little change up for me physically, environmentally. And I think Steve's done a fantastic job. And you know what? It's not even just the coach; it's the team aspect. I have an amazing team over here. As I'm just driving, and my teammate Anna's in the car beside me. She's delighted to hear that. But it's true. Whenever I was racing at the weekend, Anna was in the same heat as me. So we warmed up together. We raced together. Anna unfortunately didn't make it through to the final, but Anna came down and warmed up with me for the final. And it's little things like this that make a huge difference. I have teammates around that lift and support each other every step of the way. We have good days and we have bad days, but we're all there for each other every step of the way. Whether it's me in the 1500 or Ben Connor in the 5K over at the weekend, we're there for each other, making sure that we're okay. My Swedish teammate's got tears in her eyes, but yeah, like it's everything. It's a joint effort over here, and I definitely feel that, and I couldn't wait to get home to the girls. Ellie Kirk, who represented Wales in the marathon over at Commonwealth, came home and the girls had a little present for me on my bed whenever I got back last night. And you know, it's little things like this, because sometimes athletics can feel like a lonely sport, and it's definitely a little bit lonelier whenever it's the bad days or whenever you're slightly disappointed. But even on my rough days, I have people around me that are keeping me strong. And yeah, I'm absolutely loving this team over here, and I really do think that I'm going to go from strength to strength, and I'm really excited for the years ahead in the Irish Fest, because I think this weekend was just a taste of what I can do.
There was one last thing I just wanted to say. We did a pay-per-view every Sunday, and Michael Foley had this brilliant line when he was talking about athletics at the weekend about how Irish people have a muscle memory for athletics, and there's like all the way back to the Morton Games and Ronnie Delaney and Sonia O'Sullivan, and now like that race at the weekend was live on terrestrial TV. There was wall-to-wall coverage, and to see an Irish singlet coming around the bend in competition, it means a lot.
Well, thank you. Do you know what? It means a lot to me that we had so much coverage at the weekend, and like the number of messages I got was just phenomenal. The support from people at home is amazing, and I always feel bad because I can't reply to all of them, but just so everybody knows that it really makes such a huge difference, that we know the whole Irish nation is behind us, and it's amazing, and rightly so. The Irish public expect a lot from us athletes. They've had a phenomenal history of watching athletics and watching the best of Irish athletes out there winning medals and on the global stage, and they got it this week with Tom, and it's absolutely fantastic to see. And for somebody who himself has been knocking and not won a medal, Tom deserves that so much. And yeah, I want to give the Irish public what they're waiting for whenever they watch TV. So I'm annoyed that I fell just short this championship, but it's fantastic the amount of support and coverage you've got. And to be honest, what an amazing month for Irish sport. Like, I've just been lifted by watching the performances of all my other Irish sports team out there, whether it be the hockey girls or whether it be the other European Championships on in Glasgow. It's phenomenal, and I think it's fantastic, and sport can really lift the nation, and us Irish people are always behind our sport and stars, and the sport stars certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Just one last thing for me here, just in terms of the future and in terms of the next couple of years. Like, Steve Vernon has been quite open in his quote, saying that 2020 is the target, and I'm sure it's somewhere in your mind. I know it's time to take a break now and you'll come back to it in a few weeks or whatever, but like, when he mentions 2020, I look at it and I look at the cold figures and you look at the times from last weekend, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but is the 4-minute mark something you're really targeting at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I'm always aiming to improve and improve and improve. My PB's 4:01, and I set that after Rio in Paris after the Olympics. So, yeah, look, I have all these little targets in my head of what I want to do, and there's magical numbers for athletes on the track. For the men, it's a sub 4-minute mile. For women, it's sub 4-minute 15 and sub 2-minute 800. And there's targets that I set out myself and what I'm aiming for. And like, if you're wanting to be a performer on the world-class stage, you need to start knocking on certain numbers on the track. And I certainly want to be up there contending for medals at major champs for Ireland. And if I'm going to do that, I have to be running very fast, and to know that I have that in my arsenal. So yeah, there's certain numbers that are definitely in my head. I hope that I can hit them whenever I want to hit them. My season isn't over yet. I'm still going to race a few more races. I'm on the way to the track right now. So and a few more races ahead of me, and hopefully I can try to turn out some fast times. But definitely, before I retire from athletics, sub 4 at 1500 metres is definitely something I hope's on the cards.
Well, listen, best of luck at Birmingham this weekend, Ciara. Thanks a million for being so generous with your time on the way to the track. Cheers. Thanks a million.
Not at all. Thanks a million. Cheerio.
Congratulations again. It's Ciara Mageean giving us some thoughts there after a fourth place finish in the European Championships, and we'll be in action in Birmingham this weekend. We'll keep an eye on that for you across offtheball.com and the rest of our outlets.
Indeed we will. Yeah, it's like they always do say that fourth place is the worst place to finish, and it is heartbreaking to call out a day. There was something a little bit different though about that on Sunday, seeing that performance, because I think a lot of people, the last time they would have watched Ciara Mageean in action would have been that heat last year in London, where it was a really, really disappointing performance. So to see her back in contention for a medal again was kind of the main thing. So, like, that being said, I'm sure fourth place is still gutting, like, but there is some sort of light there. There is a huge silver lining to the whole thing.
Yeah, no, totally. And ultimately, I don't care if Irish performers win medals. You just want to see them doing their best, and that's far more inspiring, I think, to people than we won medals, and like, far better to not be winning medals and be believable and doing your best and being absolutely all the best things that athletes are. OTB AM is live this morning with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. A bunch of comments from earlier on. Wolfpack goes, "Oh no, points on Mo Salah's licence. His insurance is going to go up £100. And then cry laughing emoji, hashtag OTBAM. Thanks for that, Wolfpack. Thomas O'Keefe, though, has some inside information. He says the funny thing here is that the adult chasing him is an Evertonian who's an autograph hunter who sells Liverpool players' autographs online. Sad man.
That is, we should have seen through that. There was I feeling sorry for the man, and I was agreeing with him. I was like, yep, too much money. That's why he's not putting down his window.
Too much money, Mo.
Too much money.
Kevin Kane says the amount of Irish players featured in the Premier League was very worrying over the past weekend. Good from a defensive aspect, but no keeper and maybe one midfielder and no striker is awful worrying. Where's our next Premier League midfielders and strikers going to come from? Or do we have to rely on championship teams with Irish players being promoted? Yes, we are a championship team.
I think we're already relying on championship players, unfortunately. 3 right backs, I think, made up a good chunk of our Premier League contingent at the weekend. So that's not good. You can only play one right back. Well, he'll have to revert to a back three now and play right wing back to get
a right wing back and a right-sided defender. Kieran Clark played. Played okay, and Declan Rice, the best young player in Cyrus Christie. Yeah.
Well, Declan Rice got taken off at half time. He's got a new manager. That was his first game under Pellegrini competitively. The problem now is that Pellegrini could just drop Declan Rice.
Declan Rice he's gonna recover and be a brilliant central midfielder. He's gonna drop Jack Wilshere and realise that he needs a bit of bite in central midfield.
Well, the problem is he got match of the day, which I like to call this process where when they decide to do analysis, you're pretty unlucky if you get caught. And it's like you would have to put in a bad performance on a Sunday when there's only like 2 games because they have the time to actually go deep into the analysis. And who was on? Martin Keown was like, look at Mark Noble there, all on the Eoin midfield. And I was like, oh God, who's that other midfielder with him? It is Declan Rice. So like implicitly they were saying he's been abandoned, Mark Noble, by his fellow midfielders there. So
was Rice not in the back 3?
I was playing in midfield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. I thought he
started in midfield, and then I was like,
you got
it was like a positive moment when the team sheet was announced, and then a negative when he got taken off. But plenty of time for him to turn it around.
Yeah. Okay. Some more quick comments for you here. We have still talking about why are Mayo still tripping themselves up over Jim McGuinness? Overrated, says the face from Chrissy Dolan. Don't know where Chrissy's from. Can't tell from his avatar this morning. Still talking about why
the off the ball logo that was
Kerry Mayo should be in the final. The reason they weren't there is because they weren't good enough. Smaller counties deserve to be there if they fight for it. Monaghan don't have the population to fill Croke Park, but still had the right to be there.
When did we say that?
Roy answering a bunch of imagined questions, half remembered and half heard arguments from last night in his head.
I don't recall saying Monaghan didn't deserve to be there. They certainly did deserve to be there.
You were making the case that Dublin's best player since 2013 was Jack McCaffrey. Cluxton and Fenton have been better for Dublin, in my opinion, over that period, says Kevin Kane. I think Cluxton definitely, the importance of Cluxton can't really be overstated. I'm making the case that from this point forward, there's time for Jack McCaffrey to put together a body of work which would have him in the discussion for best footballer of his generation / of all time.
Whereas I'm saying I think he might not already, but nowhere near like all-time best player sort of standard, but in terms of what he's done, in terms of consistency, I think he's already put down a serious body of work.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And that's why if he continues on that, he needs to replicate this again and then again. And at that point you're like, okay, yeah, you're in the conversation. I mean, Fenton's consistency, still not having lost a championship game, is slightly ridiculous.
Like the thing is that
James Ryan style,
you get to the point where that becomes the incentive.
Not to lose a game.
Exactly. Like people talk, we could come back to this idea of hunger, which again, I'd agree with you on this one, that is kind of a nonsense idea. But there is sort of a carrot there, and I hate to go back to the carrot and stick sort of way of training, but of winning your first All-Ireland or winning your 3 in a row, winning your 4 in a row, whatever it is, there is an incentive there. But also, having not lost a game is a pretty proud badge of honour, and Brian Fenton would probably say he doesn't really think about it, and maybe he doesn't, but there is a time when I would say to myself, like, that's a pretty great thing to have. I want to keep this going for as long as possible. I'm going to try my best to ensure that nobody can come anywhere near me in terms of chasing me down and catching me, and that's the way Dublin kind of view the All-Ireland Championship, it seems.
Are Dublin going to win the All-Ireland final so easy that Jim Gavin can kind of mix his team up and keep everybody on their toes for next season?
That the All-Ireland final becomes a match rotation exercise.
Is that possible?
It's very possible. Of course it is.
Like
Dublin could destroy the Tyrone.
You have your eyes on next year's All-Ireland final already. I mean, obviously, you don't really, but you're thinking, geez, I need to make sure training next season is going to be interesting for these lads.
No, but your Carlo in round 1 will be a very tough match.
Who do I drop now to like shock the whole squad into thinking, Jesus, I need to be on every game? Drop Fenton for the final, something ridiculous like that, right? And you still win, and everybody's going, Jesus, he's one of our best players, and he got dropped.
Yeah, that's almost
Obviously not suggesting you drop. So
dropping Brian Fenton would create a culture of fear. I think even Jim Gavin wouldn't kind of indulge in that realm.
Cluxton.
Imagine if he dropped Cluxton for the All-Ireland final.
Just as a wake-up call to everybody else.
Does he then? Well,
you need Cluxton. You need to tell Cluxton in advance what you're doing.
Just for the sake of the speech, Jim Gavin's like, I fancy a more exciting speech this year. You get dropped, Stephen. Your speech has been too boring the last 4 years. Get off the team. But there is every possibility that it does become sort of get that fella out there and let him experience what it's like to hear the final whistle on All-Ireland final day. I'm trying to think who that person may be, because they've all already seem to have got that experience. Like the only 2 lads who haven't got that experience really of being on the pitch are Owen Merchant and Brian Howard, who are probably both going to start. Merchant maybe not, Fitzsimons might start instead of him. So he might say, Merchant, get off the bench, get in there, experience what it's like. And it's over with 20 minutes to go. That's a very live possibility. So sure, that sort of stuff can come into his head. Whether or not he wants to, tell Brian Fenton and Stephen Cluxton their places aren't always safe on the day of the All-Ireland final is probably a bridge too far. But we can't write anything off with this Dublin team.
Fair play, Nasher, says Mike O'Reilly, hashtag OTBAM. Mervyn Ford says, good day from Sydney. Fair play, Conor. Great to see another expat make the grade in the AFL. Does the number 45 signify anything for you? We forgot to ask that. Sorry, Mervyn. And Niall Cawley says, love the show, lads. Great listen on the way home from work every day, says Niall in Melbourne. So the global audience is on board with OTB AM, and I hope the weather in Melbourne is pretty good for you, Niall. So, quick video for you. Munster coach Johan van Graan speaking yesterday about his new signing, Joey Carberry.
Yeah, I really enjoyed him. Down-to-earth type of guy, quality individual. I value the person first before the player. He slotted in pretty quickly. He's one of 5 lives that we've got, and he knows that he's got to perform on field to earn his spot, and seems to have a very good head on him. Can kick with both feet. Was really impressed by that, and just his general understanding of the game. He's got the attributes that you want in a fly-off: calm, composed, and very good understanding of the game.
Yeah, Munster are going to be pretty good this season.
Look how good Joey Carberry looks in that Munster kit. I cannot wait for Thomans to erupt with the greatness of Joey Carberry all season. It's going to be brilliant. It is going to be fantastic. It's going to be the best Pro 14 season of all time. Right up there in the top 2, if I dare say.
He's going to be in the Ireland squad for the whole thing, so you're not going to get to see him.
Well, at least I'll have him in an Ireland jersey. As I say, all guns blazing for the World Cup. That's all that matters.
We were delighted to welcome Kevin Kilbane back to studio last night.
Now, one time Paul Scholes basically just kicked me up the arse. He just kicked me up the arse.
All right.
Honestly, he just tried to disclaim me. He got sent off.
Was the ball there?
It was past him, and he just literally just launched me. And it was just funny because he was just way off it. It was at Goodison Park one night, and he just absolutely smashed me. He just tried to. I think he was actually trying to kick me in the balls, but he just tried to just launch me. And anyway, he got sent off.
Did he? Yeah, I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, he got sent off.
Is there footage of this on YouTube?
Probably somewhere, I would imagine. Yeah.
We'll try and dig that out.
And I think we did. So I think if you check our Twitter feed, twitter.com/offtheball, you can find Paul Scholes kicking Kevin Kilbane up the hole. And as far as I remember, they're both going to have an opportunity to recreate the scene in the Liam Miller testimonial in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. As far as I know, Scholes is lined up to play. Kevin Kilbane is already in training. As you can see, he was looking fit and well last night, and not tired and emotional at all on the show. So, and tickets are nearly sold out for that, by the way. So well done you on getting your tickets. And if you haven't, tickets.ie for more details on where you can get tickets for that. We are back tomorrow morning from 7:45 a.m. It is 20 years to the day that 29 people were killed in the Omagh bomb. We have a special feature which we're going to bring you on the GAA community in Omagh who were affected by the Omagh bomb. It's pretty harrowing stuff. Tonight on the show from 7 o'clock, Harry Arter is going to talk about his move to Cardiff City from Bournemouth. He's on loan there for the rest of the season. That is an Irish midfielder actually playing in the Premier League. But that's pretty much all we've got time for today. From me and Eoin, good luck.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.